Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. At least that's what I was told since I was a little boy. It was not about what was on the outside of a person, but what was held inside your heart. That is all well and good, and for most of my life I believed it without question. I had no reason to think it false. I never experienced an event that would have shaken my ever-stable mindset. Until that night. It was dark, well after the sun had touched down behind the mountains of my town. I was prone to taking midnight walks. Nothing had ever deterred me from them. It was my way of coping with the horrors of my past. Memories of the fire that had taken my mother's outer beauty away from her. My headphones were dug deep into my ears, singing soft music across my mind. I could feel the gentle fall breeze on my arm, hairs standing at attention like little soldiers. Leaves were crushed as I walked through the park, my feet not needing to get constant orders from my brain to understand the direction I was traveling. I had walked the route well over 100 times, with little deviation in my path over the years. It was a soothing ritual. It almost seemed to transport me into another world. As I was approaching the far end of the open grass field, I saw a figure. From afar, it appeared to be a woman sitting on a park bench. That's odd, I thought to myself. Why is there someone sitting in the park this late at night? While curiosity worked its way around the confines of my brain, I noticed the figure turn. Yes, it was a woman. She had long hair that seemed to hover down to her waist, and in the bright moonlight I could see that she had what appeared to be a mask over her face. It reminded me of a painter's respirator, something you would see on the shelves of a hardware store. I felt a sudden need to run away, break my usual nightly route and double back on myself so that I would have to not make any more contact with the woman than I already had. But as I turned, I felt something invade the space of which I occupied. I froze, my brain screaming at my limbs to move, but no action taken. I felt a cold finger tap on my shoulder, which made me jump almost out of my shoes. I spun around, my fist clenched tight and ready to strike out at what had disrupted me. But what faced me was the woman. About 5 feet tall, dressed in all black. Her hand was white, and her bony fingers still outstretched towards me. What she wore was indeed a painter's mask. We stood still in the night as our beings met for the first time. I did not know what to say, what to think, what to feel. How had she covered the distance between the bench and me so quickly? Her eyes were not focused on me the way she was standing made her appear as if she did not have eyes at all. She lowered her hand. I unclenched my fist. She seemed to be nothing more than a normal woman. Maybe my tired mind had only imagined the distance between myself and the bench being so far. I stammered. I stammered out words that sounded as if they were coming from somewhere else entirely. Hello? Do you need something, ma'am? She did not move for a few seconds, and I began to feel as if I needed to sprint away again. Just as I was about to turn, her head lifted. That small twinge of fear that I felt overtook me, sinking deep into my chest like the butcher knife of a serial killer. Her eyes showed no whites. They were like pitch black holes that had no bottom to them. I thought for a moment they could just be crazy contacts, but then I realized that there was no highlight shining. Small trickle of blood oozed out of one of her vacant sockets, staining the bleach-white mask that covered her mouth. Am I pretty, young man? Her voice, it was dark, velvety, on my throat closing up, beads of sweat rolling down my forehead. I didn't know what to begin to say. Yes, of course you are, ma'am. She looked at me with eyes that weren't even there and let out a shrill laugh. It was high-pitched and stung my eardrums well after it had dissipated. I stepped back and fell over a rock, falling hard onto the ground, and quickly shuffled in the opposite direction. A few feet back, I hit a wall, totally paralyzed, with fear and trapped like a rat in a maze. She approached, seemingly gliding over the soft grass. She reached her hand to her face, gripping the cloth mask that hid her mouth. Ripping it away, she exposed what had once been hidden. I wish to this day that I had not seen behind that mask. What she had already shown to me had been nothing. Her bottom jaw hung down, detached from its joints and swinging slack. I had no idea how she even spoke so coherently. She was even living at all. Her teeth were perfect, brilliant white, contrasting with the dark blood that dripped from the gaping wound traversing her face. It was a slash. It was driven into her perfect skin by a sharp blade intentionally put there as a reminder, not some sort of accident. She screamed, moving closer as she did. What about now? Am I still beautiful now? My throat moved. I could not summon the needed muscles to produce sound. I choked out the response that I expected she would want to hear after what seemed like 10 minutes of laughter. Yeah, yes, you are. Liar! She pounced on top of me, blood splashing from her wound onto my face and shirt. I tried to force her off, but she was summoning strength from some unknown force. She grabbed my throat and squeezed it hard. I felt the air slowly receding. From my body, the struggles that I could muster became weaker and weaker. I realized in that moment I wouldn't be able to escape. Stars popped into my field of view. The last shreds of oxygen left my body. But right before the blackness, I heard her, I felt her whisper into my ear. I will teach you that true beauty is always skin. I awoke later in the night. Closer to morning was my best guess. On the banks of a river, which ran parallel to the park in which I had entered, in which I had encountered the woman. I sat up and felt a strong pain on my face that made me howl. I tried to stand up, but I was too weak. I crawled to the banks of the river. The water was calm. I approached it and looked to see my reflection. I vomited right into the water. On the left side of my face, there was a gash that exposed the inside of my cheek all the way down to my teeth. I screamed from the pain, bile seeping into my open wound, which only caused more damage. My cheek tore, shredded apart. It spiraled into the wall, blacked out. I awoke 2 days later. My face totally bandaged. The story I was told was that a woman called to report that she had found a man's body next to the river. But when the cops arrived, the woman was nowhere to be found. As I sit here, I can say that I know who that woman was, without a shadow of doubt. Once I got home, I did some research. I found the 911 call, which turned out to be made from my own cell phone. And I listened to it. It was normal. Predictable. Till the end. The operator hangs up. The woman does not. You can hear a soft gurgling sound that lasts about 20 seconds. And then that fucking velvety voice whispered something. I had to rewind it again. The volume all the way up to hear it.